Good morning, everyone. In the last session, we started our discussion related to properties file and YML file. When we create boot application, by default, application.properties file will be created. Whenever you create a boot application, by default, properties file will be created. That is the default nature. Instead of hard coding the messages in the Java code, we are going to configure them in the properties file so that whenever we want, we can change them easily. This properties file will represent the data in the sequential format. These properties files will be supported by only Java. For every profile, we need to create a separate properties file. It is there. But nowadays, what happened is Spring Boot supported for YML files also. As the alternate for the properties file, Spring Boot is supporting for YML also. So what is the meaning of this YML? YML stands for yet another markup language. It will represent the data in hierarchical format. Property file will represent data only in the key value format, whereas YML file will represent the data in the hierarchical format. Okay, so this YML supports not only key value, YML supports list and map values also. YML supported by other programming languages also. It is universal. YML supported by other programming languages also. It is universal. All the profiles we can configure in the single YML that we discussed in the last session. And how to work with the dynamic properties? We can configure the properties in the YML and we can read those properties in our Java class by using value. Can you guys tell me what is the purpose of @value annotation? Can you guys tell me what is the purpose of @value annotation? Come on, guys. What is the purpose of @value annotation? What is the purpose of @value annotation? It is used to read the messages from the properties file or YML file into Java class variable. Based on the key, we can read the value and we can store that value into variable. So when it is recommended to go for value annotation, guys, when it is recommended to go for value annotation, come on. When it is recommended to read value annotation, when you have only one or two keys to read. If you have one or two keys to read from the properties file, then you can go for @value. Suppose your application is having several keys, like there are 100 messages available in the application. So is it recommended to create a class with 100 variables? Is it recommended to create a class with 100 variables to read all the messages from the YML file? It is not recommended. Then how we are going to read the data from the YML in the real time? How we are going to read the data from the YML in the real time? Now, let me create one more application. File, new, starter application. File, new, starter application. So I'm going to make this application as 42 Spring Boot YML reading app. Spring Boot YML reading app. I want to read the data from the YML into my Java class. Click on next. I can use Lombok. web dev tools. I'm using three dependencies here. One is Lombok dependency, second one is web dependency, and the third one is dev tools. Click on next, click on finish. So YML reading application got created. YML reading application got created. Okay. Now here by default you see properties file got created. By default properties file got created. Can we change that to YML? Can we rename that file to YML? Convert to dot properties to dot YML. Converted. Now I have YML file. Inside this YML file, if you want, you can configure your port numbers, your application name, your context path, your data source properties, your application messages. Like that, you can configure all those properties in the YML file. For example, if you want to configure a port, server.port, control space, it will give the spacing adjustment will be done automatically. Now you see here, I'm going to take server.port, right? 9090. If you want to change the port number, suppose if you want to configure application name, spring dot application dot name, spring dot application dot name. So for this, I'm giving Spring Boot YML app. For this, I'm giving the name as Spring Boot YML app. Spring application name, Spring Boot YML app. Okay, fine. So like this, we are going to configure the properties in the YML. Now, I want to configure some messages in my application. So application messages like invalid credentials, registration success, login, email ID incorrect, forgot password, invalid email ID, record inserted successfully, record updated successfully, record deleted successfully. Like this, I want to configure multiple messages in my application, right? How to configure those multiple messages which are specific to my application? Guys, see here, there are two types of messages. First one is there are two types of properties, user defined properties and predefined properties. Server port is a user defined property. Server port is a predefined property. Server port is a user defined property. Server port is a predefined property. Come on. Server port user defined property or it is a predefined property. It is a predefined property. So in my code, am I going to use this server port? Spring Boot will use a server port property. Are we going to use this property in our code? To execute our code, are we using this property? Or Spring Boot is going to use this property? Spring Boot will use this property. Spring application name, are we going to use this property in our code? Spring Boot will use this property. Spring Boot will use this property. And when we have data source properties, when we have data source properties, when we have data source properties, are we going to use this property or Spring Boot is going to use this property when we write the data source properties? Spring Boot will use. These all are predefined properties. These all are predefined properties. Now, I want to configure some user defined properties. So for that, I will write app. Here, app, you can give any name. You can give any name. Suppose my application name is Ashok IT. So I'm giving the name as Ashok IT. Inside the Ashok IT, I'm writing some messages. Inside the messages, I'm writing key value, welcome. So it is welcome to Ashok IT. It is welcome to Ashok IT. Greet. It is good morning. Good morning. Wish. So it is all the best. All the best. So how I am configuring these messages? Some messages are predefined messages. Some messages are user defined messages. Are you able to understand the difference between these messages and these messages? These messages are predefined messages or predefined properties which will be used by Spring Boot. These are user defined properties which I am going to use in my application. Are you able to understand? Are you able to understand this? Predefined properties and custom properties. Predefined properties are available and custom properties are available. For custom properties or for custom messages, I have given one application name. So to identify what are the predefined properties and what are the custom properties, I have differentiated them by giving my application. The properties which are starting from Ashok IT, these are custom properties. The properties which are above the Ashok IT are predefined properties. Are you able to understand why I am giving the Ashok IT name here? Instead of Ashok IT, you can give your project name. For example, if your project is SBI project, you can give SBI as a name there. If your project is a Axis Bank project, you can give Axis as a name there. Any name, any one name that we are going to provide, any one name we are going to provide to differentiate that these are application custom properties. These are application custom properties. Now, inside the Ashok IT, messages are available. Can I say messages is a map now? Can I say messages is a map now? Guys, come on. Can I say messages is a map now? What is the data available inside the messages? What is the data available in the messages? Key value. Can I say that these are the entries? Can I say that these are the entries? A key, a value, a key, a value, a key, a value. So these are called as entries. These are called as entries. These entries are available inside the messages. Messages is a map. Messages available inside Ashok IT. So these are application messages. So in the real time, when we are writing the application messages, we will follow syntax like this. So in the YML file, predefined properties will be available, custom properties will be available. Custom properties will be represented as a map under our project name. So that now I want to read the custom properties. How can I identify the custom properties? Can I say the properties which are under Ashok IT, can I consider them as a custom properties now? Do I need to read these properties also, or Spring Boot will read these properties now? Server port, application name, do I need to read them, or Spring Boot is going to read them? Do I need to read them, or Spring Boot is going to read them? Come on. These 1 to 5, Spring Boot will read them. We no need to do that. 1 to 5, Spring Boot will read them. Spring Boot will use those properties. So these are my custom properties. I need to read only custom properties. Custom properties are starting from Ashok IT. Inside the Ashok IT, there is a map. Inside the map, key value pairs are available. Chalo, let's try to read these properties now. Okay, in order to read these properties, I am going to create one class. I'm going to create one class that is called props class. Inside the props class, I will write the logic to read the data from the YML file. So here I have a map concept. Map name is what? What is the name of the map, guys? What is the name of the map now? Messages. The name of the map is messages. So let me read this. Private map string comma string. Map name should be same. My map name is messages is equal to new hash map. Private map string of string messages is equal to new hash map. I created one map object. Why I used the name as a messages for the map name? Because in the YML, the map name is also messages. So here also messages. I want to generate setters getters for this variable. For that I am using @data. I want to generate setters getters for these variables. So I'm using @data. Is this clear? I have configured custom properties in the YML file as a map. To read the custom properties, I created one Java class. In that Java class, I want to store the messages in a map concept, that is key comma value. Key comma value. So to generate the setters getters for this variable, I'm using @data. Okay. Now consider this class as a I want to consider this class as a configuration class. I want to consider this class as a configuration class because it is going to read all the properties and it is going to configure them in the map concept. Okay, fine. This is a configuration class. So IOC will recognize that it is a configuration class. IOC will create the object. But how to tell to IOC to read the custom properties from the YML and store the custom properties into this variable? We need to write two more annotations. We need to write two more annotations. We no need to read it manually. We can tell to Spring Boot this class is used for properties purpose and tell that which properties it has to read and store into this class. So for that, I'm going to use one annotation called enable configuration properties. What is the annotation I'm using, guys? Enable configuration properties is one annotation. And the next one, configuration properties. Configuration properties. Prefix. Prefix is Ashok IT. From where our custom properties are starting? Custom properties are starting from Ashok IT. So I'm telling that prefix is equal to Ashok IT. So it is going to read all the messages which are available inside the Ashok IT. Are you clear with my point? Are you clear with my point now? That's it. That's it. This class is going to read all the messages from the YML which are under Ashok IT. Will store into this map. Now, in which class you want to use the messages? You inject the app properties. You inject this app properties class, and you can get the messages based on key and value. Okay. So configuration properties is the annotation which is used to read the messages from the given prefix. Configuration properties is the annotation which is used to read the messages from the YML based on the given prefix. Okay, guys. Enable configuration properties annotation. This supports to read those annotations, and it is going to process those properties and store into in this map concept. Here I have the custom messages under Ashok IT as a map. Now I want to read these entries. I want to store into map. For that, I created one app properties class. So in this class, I used one variable to generate setters getters for this variable. I'm using @data. And I want to represent this as a Spring Bean. This class I'm using to configure the messages. So I'm using @configuration. Next one, enable configuration properties and configuration properties class. It is used to read the configurations from the class path YML and store into this map. Now, wherever you want to use the properties, you need to inject this app properties. Now see here, I will create one REST controller. I will create one REST controller. My REST controller or demo REST controller. I have created demo REST controller. I will represent this as a REST controller. I will represent this as a REST controller. Got my point? Fine. Demo REST controller. In this demo REST controller, I want to read the messages. Now, do I need to read the messages from the YML directly, or I need to take the messages from the properties class? Guys, if I want the messages, do I need to take the messages from the YML directly, or I need to take the messages from the properties class? Properties class. Who will read the messages from the YML into properties class? Spring Boot. Spring Boot will take the data from the YML, will store into properties class. Wherever you need the messages, you just need to use that properties class. Wherever you need the messages, you just need to use the properties class, guys. Okay, perfect. Now, private app properties, private app properties, props, auto wiring, auto wiring. Wherever we need to use these properties, there I'm using this auto wiring. Public class demo REST controller. I'm representing this class as a REST controller. I'm representing this class as a REST controller. Inside the REST controller, I'm injecting my app properties. Inside the REST controller, I'm injecting my app properties. Private app properties props. Private app properties props. Perfect. Next one. I want to write a method, public string welcome message method. Welcome message method. It is binded to get mapping of slash welcome. Welcome. I want to return welcome message. Where is welcome message? In the YML. From the YML, it will be reading into properties class. Now I need to get the message from properties class. Props dot get messages. When I call props dot get messages, what I'm getting? I'm getting map. So we know the key already. Messages dot get off. What is the key? My key is a welcome. Or else we can say that this key you can give it as a welcome message. This key you can give as a welcome message. You can give it as a greet message. You can give it as a wish message. Okay. Now my key is welcome message. Now I got the value. Now I am going to return this value. Now, am I hard coding the messages? Am I reading the messages from the YML file? I am just injecting the properties class into my REST controller. Properties.get messages. Properties.get messages. I'm reading those messages into a map. Map.get of key. Java concept. Map.get of key. It will give you value. I'm returning that value. Similarly, I want to write a method for greet message. Okay. Now here I can give the method name anything. Get welcome message. Public string get greet message. Public string get greet message. Props dot get messages. Props dot get messages. I can give messages dot get off key. What is our key? Greet message, which is going to give you some value, then we are going to return that value. Okay, so this is my get mapping. This is my get mapping slash greet. Similarly, we are writing one more method, public string get public string get wish message. Public string get wish message. Properties dot get messages. Directly, I can use a method chaining concept. Directly, can I use a method chaining? Instead of writing in the two lines, can I write in the single line? Okay, return value. Instead of that, can I directly simplify this? Can I directly simplify this within single line? This is how experienced people will write the code within single line. Within single line, I'm able to write it. In the above methods, how many lines I'm using? In the above methods, see here, I am calling properties.getMessages. It will give you a map.get. It will give the value, return the value. Can I do everything in the single line? Can I simplify the coding now? So both are same or not? So these 3 lines of code I have completed just in 1 line. These 3 lines of code I completed just in 1 line. Is it valid? Is it valid, guys? When you call properties.getMessages, it will give you a map. Map.get, it will give you value. Directly I'm returning the value. Either these 3 lines or this single line, same. Concept is same. What is our intention? We need to get the messages from the properties. From those messages, we need to get the value based on the key. That's it. Are you able to understand how I created my REST controller now? Are you guys able to understand how I created my REST controller now? Come on. Okay. Now let us run our application. I don't want to change the port number. Default port number is there, 8080. Okay. Let us update our application. Let us update our application. Run as boot application. Run as boot application. Application started. Port number 8080. Let's go to our browser. Localhost colon 8080/welcome. Localhost colon /8080/welcome. /welcome. I'm trying to get it. Are we getting any message? No. /greet. No. /wish. No. Empty response. That means, are these able to read those properties properly? No. Refresh. App properties. Data. Configuration properties. Enable configuration properties. Update Maven project. Update force update. Update this project. Now run as boot application. Run as boot application. Now we are getting. When I give /wish, I'm getting all the best. When I give greet, I'm getting good morning. When I give welcome, I'm getting welcome to Ashok IT. So that means, are we able to read the messages from this YML file into our Java class? Are we able to read the messages from YML file into Java class? Do I need to use value annotation now? Guys, do I need to use value annotation or I don't need to use value annotation? Do I need to use value annotation or I don't need to use value annotation? Do I need to use value annotation or I don't need to use value annotation? I don't need to use value annotation. Now tell me when to go for value annotation, when to go for properties class, when to go for value annotation, when to go for properties class. In the real time, which one we will use mostly? In the real time, which one we will use mostly? Come on, guys. Properties class. In my project, we are having properties class concept, working with app properties, working with app properties. If you want to read just one or two values, then you can go for @value annotation that we discussed in the last session. But if you are having multiple properties to read, then properties class is the recommended approach. Properties class is the recommended approach. Okay. You are not able to understand Geta. Sir, what are the properties you have in the YML file? These properties are stored into this map variable. Okay. So how to the data is available in the map variable. Let me print this map, you will understand. System.out.print map. So your data is available in the map. From the map, you need to get the value based on the key. So /greet. Good morning. Can you see? Messages is a map. In the map, the data is available in the key value, key value, key value. So now I want to get this value. How can I get this value? Based on this key name, map.get of key. It is a basic core Java concept, sir. I got the messages. Properties.get messages means I got all the messages. From the messages, I want to get a message. Map.get of key. It will give you value. What is there to not to understand? You understand what is that get method? Map.get core Java concept will give you value. Will give you value. Okay. So this is my application.yml. This is my application.yml file. And this is my app properties.java. App properties.java. And here I have my demo REST controller.java. This is my demo REST controller.java. Are you clear? Are you clear? All the custom messages we need to write inside this Ashok IT, so that these are under prefix of Ashok IT. We can read all of them. Whenever you read this using properties, all these messages will come. So custom properties we will differentiate by using this keyword like Ashok IT, YML file. Suppose if you don't want to read any one property, if you want to comment any one property, then you can use hash. Hash is used to comment the properties in the YML. Hash is used to comment any property in the YML. Okay. Suppose some message. I just want to keep some message. Hello. I don't want this. For that, I will use hash. Hash means commented. So this is a commented message. It is displaying in the red color. That is a commented property, commented message in the YML. That is a commented message in the YML. Are you clear? Are you clear? What is hash? Hash is a commented message. This warning you can ignore, guys. So it is saying that I don't know what is this Ashok IT property. These are predefined properties, right? They can understand. Ashok IT is a custom property. It is not able to understand. No problem. No problem. Sir, can we configure multiple custom properties? Can we configure multiple custom properties? Okay. Yes. Here you can configure multiple custom properties. Just your prefix is going to change now. Your prefix is going to change. This is one prefix. This is another prefix. These are one set of messages. These are another set of messages. You can configure like this. Multiple prefixes. Perfect. So I hope you understood how to work with properties class. How to work with the properties class. How to work with the properties class. How to read the messages from the YML into a properties class, and how to inject the properties class, how to get the messages wherever we need it. Okay, guys. Are you clear? So we are using @value and we are using app properties. So which one will be used in the real time? Depends upon the requirement. If you want to read only one or two properties, then we can go for @value. If you want to read all the properties, then app properties concept is recommended. App properties concept is recommended. Clear? All right, good. Sir, can I use more than one application.yml file? Can I create one more YML file with a name called ashokit.yml? Can I configure my properties in the ashokit.yml file? Can I do that? Spring Boot will recognize my YML. Spring Boot will not recognize my YML. No. So this application.yml is a predefined name. Spring Boot will understand that and Spring Boot will read that. Application.yml is a predefined file. Spring Boot will understand that and Spring Boot will read that. If you create your own YML, Spring Boot will not read it because it is your own file. Spring Boot will not know about that. Okay. Fine. Profiles already I explained in that video. Application-dev.properties, application-dev QA.properties, application-prod.properties. Like that, for every profile, one properties file we will create. If it is a YML, a single YML we will write. All the profiles will separate by using 3 hyphens. Got it? Perfect. Are you clear with YML file? So from now onwards, are we going to use a properties file or we are going to use YML file? From now onwards, are we going to use a properties file or we are going to use YML file? We are going to use YML files. YML files are the recommended approach to configure the properties in the application. YML stands for yet another markup language. YML files are human readable as well as machine readable. Human readable as well as machine readable. Very good. Next concept. Another powerful feature in the Spring Boot, that is Spring Boot actuators. There is another important concept, guys. Spring Boot actuator concept. No, Mr. Tushar, multiple properties files you can write, those are for profiles, dev properties, YML, QA properties. But for the YMLs, we don't do that. Within the single, we will configure everything. All right, shall I move on? Shall I start the actuators concept, guys? Okay, actuators. Spring Boot actuators. Actuator is one of the powerful feature introduced in Spring Boot. Actuator is one of the powerful feature introduced in Spring Boot. Actuators provided some endpoints. Actuators are used to monitor and manage our application. Actuators is one of the powerful feature introduced in Spring Boot. Actuators are used to monitor and manage our application. Actuators are used to monitor and manage our application. Actuator is one of the powerful feature introduced in the Spring Boot. Actuators are used to monitor and manage our application. Actuators are used to monitor and manage our application. Actuators, the official definition from the Spring Boot. Actuators are used to provide, actuators are giving production ready features for our applications. Actuators are giving production ready features for our boot applications. Okay, actuators providing production ready features. What is the meaning of that? Let's understand. See here, Spring Boot actuator. From official documentation, we can see what is actuator. What is the title they have given? Spring Boot actuator, nothing but production ready features. Production ready features. So Spring Boot includes a number of additional features to help you monitor and manage your application when you push it to production. You can choose those application endpoints by using actuator. You can monitor that. So they are production ready features. In order to work with the actuator, we are having one starter, that is Spring Boot actuator starter is available. Using that, we can work with the actuator dependencies. In the actuator, there are so many endpoints are available. Using those endpoints, you can monitor your application. What is the meaning of monitoring? Right, we'll understand that. Actuator is one of the powerful feature introduced in Spring Boot. Actuators are used to monitor and manage our application. Actuators are giving production ready features for our boot application. Actuators are giving production ready features for our boot application. So actuator endpoints. So there are several endpoints available in the actuator to monitor our application. So first one is health endpoint /health to get application health status, /info to get application information. That means what is this application, why we developed this application, what functionality is available in this application. That information we can get by using /info. Next one /beans to get what beans loaded by our application, to get what beans loaded by our application. Okay, slash mappings, to get what URLs, what URL patterns available in our application. Okay, so there are several endpoints are available. Health is one endpoint, info is one endpoint, bean is one endpoint, mappings is one endpoint, config props. So what are the configuration properties loaded by our application? We can check it by using one endpoint called config props, to get configuration properties loaded by our application. To get configuration properties loaded by our application, we can use config props. We can use config props. Understood? Actuator is one of the powerful feature introduced in the Spring Boot. Actuators are used to monitor and manage our application. Actuators are giving production ready features for our boot application. What is the meaning of production ready feature? Once you deploy your application, your work is not completed. Once your deploy your application, you need to monitor your application. What is the health of the application? What are the beans loaded by our application? What are the configuration properties loaded by our application? What are the configuration properties loaded by our application? Okay, what is heap dump of our application? Heap dump, that means to download heap data, to download heap data. What is a thread dump? What is a thread dump? To get threads running, to get the threads information running for our application. So like that, there are so many actuator endpoints are available. These actuator endpoints are used to monitor our application. So our application development is completed. Our application deployment is also completed. When the application is running, I want to monitor what is the health of my application. How many beans loaded by my application? What are the URL patterns available in my application? What are the configuration properties available in my application? Heap data of my application, thread dump of my application. I want to get all these details to monitor my application. For that, we are using actuator endpoints. Okay, now here guys, to add the actuators to our application, Spring Boot provided below starter. To work with actuators, we have to use Spring Boot starter actuator, Spring Boot starter actuator dependency. By default, actuator will not be available in the boot application. In order to use this actuators, we need to add this dependency in our form.xml. Are you clear with my point? Can you read it? What is actuator, guys? Can you read it? What is actuator now? Can you read it? What is actuator? Actuator is one of the powerful feature introduced in Spring Boot. Actuators are used to monitor and manage our applications. Actuators are giving production ready features for our boot application. There are several actuator endpoints are available to monitor. So how we developed our endpoint /welcome /wish /greet, like that there are some predefined endpoints are available, URL patterns. If you send a request to this URL pattern, it will tell you health of your application. If you send a request to this URL pattern, it will tell you what are the beans loaded by your application. If you send a request to /mappings, it will tell you what are the URL patterns available, what are the beans loaded, what are the URL patterns available, what are the configuration properties loaded, what is heap dump, what is a thread dump. Like that you can see the information. Okay, fine. Then actuators are very beautiful, but how to work with them, how to add the actuators to our project. To add the actuators to our project, you can use boot starter actuator dependency. Okay, there is a another endpoint called shutdown. There is another endpoint called shutdown to stop our application. This is binded to post request, guys. This is special. It is binded to post request. Remaining all endpoints are binded to get request, but this is binded to post request. There are so many endpoints are available. 15 to 16 endpoints are available. All those endpoints are binded to get request. Directly you can send a get request to these endpoints. But there is a shutdown endpoint. It is a special endpoint that is binded to post request. That is binded to post request. All right, let us create one boot application now. Let us create one boot application. That is our 43 application, actuator application, Spring Boot actuator. Spring Boot actuators. Click on next. Web dependency, dev tools, dev tools. So what we are going to use, we need to add actuator. Now see here, Spring Boot actuator. Spring Boot builds in endpoints that let you monitor and manage your application, such as application health, metrics, and sessions, right? So actuator dependency, I am adding for first time. Click on next, click on finish. Click on next and click on finish. So actuator dependency added, my project is getting created. I have just added dependency. I have not done anything. I have just added dependency. I have not done anything. Go to pom.xml. Go to pom.xml and see that. Can you see actuator starter added? Can you see that actuator starter added in our pom.xml? Okay, actuator starter added in the pom.xml. Let us run this application. Run as boot app. See the console. See the difference in the console earlier and this time, before adding the actuator dependency, after adding the actuator dependency. Can you see a message is available? Exposing one endpoint beneath the base path /actuator. So /actuator endpoint is enabled and it is exposed for our application. Okay, now let me send a request to that /actuator. Now see here what it is telling that, boss, for your application, one endpoint is exposed, that is /health. Now let us take this URL. Let us send a request to that endpoint. What is the health of my application now? The health status is up. That means my application is working perfectly. The status is up. If there is some memory problem, if there is some issue in the application, then it will say the status is down. Currently, the status is saying as up. That means my application health is good. How I am able to get the status of my application health? I just added one dependency called actuator dependency. What is actuator? It is used to monitor our application. How we can monitor our application? There are some endpoints are available. How to work with these endpoints? There is a dependency. We need to add this dependency in the pom.xml. Then we can work with this actuator endpoints. So whenever I add this actuator endpoint, by default /actuator URL pattern we are able to access. So we can see the exposed endpoints. We can see we can see actuator exposed endpoints using below URL. Okay, http://localhost:8080/actuator. So currently for my application, all these endpoints are exposed. Only health endpoint is exposed. Can I access all the endpoints now, or I can access only health endpoint now? All the endpoints are exposed for my application. Only health endpoint is exposed for my application. Only health endpoint exposed for my application. Only health endpoint exposed for my application. Are you clear? Are you clear with my point? Are you clear with my point? I have not done any change in the YML file as of now. I have not done any change in the YML file as of now. I just created a project. In the project, I added this dependency. That's it. Did I do any change in the first of all, YML file itself is not available. Which file I have? Properties file. Convert the properties file to YML. Any properties I configured in the YML? Did I configure anything in the YML? What steps I have done so far? I just created a boot application by using actuator dependency. That's it. That's it. Understood? Somebody saying that I'm not able to understand YML. I have not done anything in the YML. I just created a project. In the project, I have added one dependency. Which dependency I added? Actuator. What is the purpose of actuator? It is giving some production ready features to monitor our application. It is giving some production ready features to monitor our application. Are you clear? Are you clear? It is giving some production ready features to access our application. Okay. But currently, how many endpoints are exposed for our application? Do we have all the endpoints exposed, or only one endpoint is exposed? Only one endpoint got exposed. What is that endpoint? Health. Now I want to expose other endpoints also. Okay, let us see here. Management dot endpoint dot web dot exposure dot web dot exposure dot include. Okay, health is a default endpoint, guys. It will come by default. If you want to expose the remaining actuator endpoints, we need to write this property. Okay, health is a default endpoint. Okay, note health is default endpoint which we can access directly. Health is a default endpoint which we can access directly. If you just add the dependency in the pom.xml, health endpoint will be accessible for you. If you just add a dependency in the pom.xml, you can access health endpoint. Are you clear? Now how to expose remaining endpoints? How to expose the remaining endpoints? Do we need to enable them, or boot will enable automatically? Do we need to enable them, or boot will enable them? We need to. How? We need to write some property. Either properties file or YML file we can use. We need to enable those actuator endpoints. I mean exposing. So to access, okay, how to expose, we can expose the other actuator endpoints using below property. We can expose other actuator endpoints using below property. We can expose other actuator endpoints using below property. See here, for actuator endpoint enable, we are going to write a property management dot endpoint dot web dot exposure dot include. What endpoints you want to include? For example, what endpoints you want to include? I want to include only beans. I want to include only beans, and I want to include only mappings. Can I configure the endpoints which I want to include? Now this is a list. Include, inside the include, I am writing list of endpoints that I want to expose. Now stop it, run our application, run as boot application, run as boot application. Exposing that, I think I need to update my project. When you change that YML, let's do update maven, update the project, force update. Update the project, force update. Right click, run as boot app. Now I have enabled two endpoints slash actuator slash beans. Now which one is enabled, guys? Now which one is enabled now? Slash beans got exposed. Instead of that, I can write mappings. Basically, it is a mappings slash beans and slash mappings. Let me do update maven, update the project, force update. Update the project and do the force update. Run this application, run the boot application. Now can you see exposing two endpoints? Refresh. What endpoints it enabled? Exposed. One is the beans, another one is mappings. So if you access beans endpoint, it will give you all the classes which are loaded by our application in the JSON format. Okay, let us see our REST controller. All the beans which are loaded by our application. So we don't have any REST controller created. So all the beans which are loaded by our Spring Boot, it is going to display. It is a slash beans. If you go for slash mappings, all the URL patterns which are loaded by the application, all the URL patterns available in the application, it is going to print. So slash actuator will give you what are the endpoints are exposed for our application. So I exposed slash beans and slash mappings. Like this, you can specify which endpoints you want to expose, include beans and mappings. Okay. For example, I want to expose everything. Then you can go for a star like this. You can go for a star like this. Then all the endpoints will be exposed. All the endpoints will be exposed. Endpoints web exposure include star I am giving. Okay, guys, refresh, maven, update the project, force update. I have given include star so that every endpoint will be exposed. Run as boot application. I'm running my application. Now, can you see how many endpoints exposed now? Earlier, first time by default only one. Then I exposed two endpoints. Now I gave star. When I gave star, how many endpoints are exposing? Can you see that, guys? Can you see that how many endpoints are exposed now? 13. What are those 13 endpoints? Where we can identify those 13 endpoints? Where we can identify those 13 endpoints? Can I use this URL to identify what endpoints are exposed? Can I use this URL to identify what are those 13 endpoints which exposed? Yes, go here. Now see, these all are the endpoints which are exposed for our application. /beans, /health, /info, /config props, /loggers, /heap dump, /thread dump, /mappings, scheduled tasks, metrics, like this. There are so many endpoints exposed. 13 endpoints got exposed. Application metrics we are able to get. Thread dump. When you send a request to this endpoint, it will give you all the threads which are running in our application, all the threads details we are going to get in the JSON format. So like this, we can expose the endpoints by using this option. Management endpoints web exposure include star. When I give include star, what will happen? It is going to expose all the endpoints. Sir, I want to expose everything. Expose everything except to beans. We can configure exclude also. We can configure exclude. If you give include star, everything will come. I want everything except the beans. Then we can exclude also. Which endpoints you want to expose? You can write them using include. Which endpoints you want to exclude? You can write them by using exclude property. Include is available, exclude is available. If you give include as a star, everything will be included. If you don't want to include particular endpoint, you can use exclude. Okay, right click Maven update project. I have updated this project. Now right click run as boot application. Now I am running. I'm giving include star, exclude beans. I want everything to include except to beans. Now see, the count got decreased. When I give star, how many endpoints exposed? 13. But this time we are getting only 12. What is the reason? What is the reason? What is the reason? I have excluded one endpoint called beans. Okay. Now go here and refresh. Is it displaying the beans endpoint in the list? Is it displaying the beans endpoint in the list? Beans endpoint is not displayed in the list because I have done exclude. I have done exclude. So now read it. What is actuator? Come on. Fast guys, quickly. What is actuator? Actuator is one of the powerful feature introduced in Spring Boot. Actuator is one of the powerful feature introduced in Spring Boot. Actuators are used to monitor and manage our application. Actuators are used to monitor and manage our application. Actuators are giving production ready features for our boot application. Actuators are giving production ready features for our application. Production ready features means which are used to monitor and manage our application. So for the actuator, there are several predefined endpoints are available. Using those endpoints, we can monitor and manage our application. What is the health of the application? How many beans loaded? What are the URL patterns available? What are the config properties available? What is the heap data? What is the thread data? All these things you can monitor of your application by using endpoints. How to work with these actuators now? In order to work with these actuators, we will add this dependency. Spring Boot Starter actuator dependency. Spring Boot Starter actuator dependency we are going to use for working with actuators. All right. Health is the default endpoint which we can access directly. You no need to do any changes in the properties file to work with the health. Health will be available default. But if you want to access the remaining endpoints, then you need to write this property include star, so that 13 endpoints you will get. You want everything, but you don't want some endpoint. Then you have the option to exclude. You can include the endpoints and you can exclude the endpoints also. That is fine. There is a special endpoint available which is called shutdown. This is shutdown. What is the purpose of /shutdown? It is a special endpoint. It is used to stop our application also. So that is binded to post request. Now let us see official documentation of Spring Boot. Exposing endpoints. Shutdown is available. Okay, guys. So in order to work with the shutdown, so see here, they have given this documentation, official Spring. Star means all the endpoints, management endpoints, web exposure include star, everything you will get. Okay, securing these endpoints and all. If you are using properties file, you can write a property like this. So if you want to use YML properties file, in the properties file, you can use like this. So to configure, to enable endpoints, to expose endpoints using application.properties, we will use below property. Management.endpoints.web.exposure.include. Application.yml if you are using, then you can write like this. If you are using application.yml, you will write like this. If you are using application.properties, then you will write like this. It depends upon what file you are using. Then if you want to expose that shutdown, by default shutdown is enabled or by default shutdown is not enabled. By default shutdown is enabled or by default shutdown is not enabled. By default shutdown is not enabled. We need to do that manually. We need to do that manually. So shutdown will not be available by default, guys. We need to enable that. Shutdown will not be enabled by default. We need to enable that manually. Okay, so there will be some property endpoints. Shutdown endpoint will be available. Let me come to this management.endpoints.web dot management dot endpoint dot web dot exposure dot management dot shutdown. Shutdown enabled. Endpoint shutdown enabled is equal to true. So I want to enable this shutdown endpoint. Shutdown endpoint enabled true. I want to enable shutdown. So what is the purpose of shutdown? Shutdown is used to stop our application. Maven update our project, force update. Maven update our project, that is force update. Run as boot application. My application is running. As I told you, shutdown is a special. We need to enable it manually and we need to send a post request. Now you see, again I got 13. The reason shutdown is enabled. Okay, so now if I want to remove this, I want everything. I want shutdown also. I want everything and I want shutdown also. Update my project. Maven, update the project, force update. Right click, run as boot app. Right click, run as boot app. Perfect. Right, 14 endpoints we got. 13 normal, 14 is a shutdown. Okay, 13 normal, 14 is the shutdown /actuator. Now see, I got so many endpoints. So are you able to see shutdown endpoint also? Shutdown endpoint is also enabled. Can I send a request to shutdown? What I am getting? Method not allowed. shut down all the remaining endpoints are binded to get request. See here, for health, I can send request directly from the browser, get request. But am I able to send the request to shutdown? Why I am not able to get the send the request? What it is saying? Request method get not supported. What is the meaning of that? What is the meaning of that request method get not supported? What is the meaning of request method get not supported? It is binded to post request. Can I send you a post request from the browser address bar directly? Can we send you a post request? How can we send the post request now? We will go for Postman. Let us go for Postman. In the Postman, we have a option to send the post request. Okay, Postman or Swaggers we can use, right? So I will go for post request. I will go for post request slash actuator slash shutdown. Click on send. Shutting down by. Now see, my application got terminated. My application got terminated. I'm able to send a request to the shutdown endpoint also. My application got terminated. So you understood how to work with shutdown? You understood how to work with shutdown? Working with the shutdown endpoint. Working with the shutdown. Okay, it is used to stop our application. It is used to stop our application. It is binded to, we need to enable this manually. We need to enable this manually. It is binded to HTTP post request. It is binded to HTTP post request. So like this, we can enable that. Very good, guys. Actuators, it is a damn sure interview question. What is actuators in the Spring Boot? How to work with actuators in the Spring Boot? They will ask you. You should be able to answer them. What is actuators? Actuators are used to monitor and manage our application. Actuators are giving production ready features for our boot application. Actuator endpoints are there. To work with these actuator endpoints, we need to add the dependency in the pom.xml, and this is the URL to access that. So to expose the endpoints, we'll write the property in the YML. So to work with the shutdown, we need to enable that, and we need to send a post request for that. Then only shutdown will work. Shutdown is a special endpoint. They complicated the shutdown because they don't want everybody to send the request easily to stop the application. So that's why they made some changes for that. They made some changes for that. Everybody cannot send the request easily from the browser for shutdown. YML file notes I have uploaded, guys. I have updated that. Now I'm going to upload the notes for actuators. Spring Boot actuators. Actuators is one of the powerful concept that is available in Spring Boot. Are you guys able to access that notes? Can you check it? Yesterday's notes I have uploaded, YML file notes, because today I added some more content in that. Today I have added some more content in that. And boot notes, boot actuator notes also I have uploaded. Today's notes is updated in the portal, guys. Can you access? Shutdown will not be enabled in the real time, guys. Just the concept wise I explained, but we don't enable shutdown in the real time. Okay. YML notes not opening. Let me check it once. It is opening, man. Today's code is also available. YML nodes available. Actuator nodes is also available. Okay, perfect. Thank you guys. With this, I'm stopping for today. We'll meet again in the tomorrow session. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye bye.